بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His help, His guidance, His assistance. Whomever Allah Ta'ala guides, indeed they are guided. And whomever Allah Ta'ala does not guide and leaves them astray to their own nafs, to their own whims, their own desires, whoever Allah Ta'ala forsakes out of His justice, then no one will guide them and can guide them other than Allah. Allah's guided us to Islam, Allah's guided us to Iman, and Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala has blessed us all with faith in Him, and we ask Allah Ta'ala for ihsan, for excellence in all that we do, inshaAllah Ta'ala. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. After the intro, this is the class on worship for youth. We have reached lesson number 5. And in this lesson, there's a lot to cover, to be quite honest with you. There's a lot to cover, and what's very important is that in what we are covering, there's a whole lot of things that break the fast. However, this is a youth class. I remind you, if you're interested in taking something at a deeper level, inshallah, sign up for one of the fiqh classes that deal with fasting in more detail. But for our introductory purposes, and also to make sure youth understand the basics of what breaks the fast, and what do you do when there are types of fast that break, that there's no penalty for, you just make it up throughout the rest of the year. And I'm going to be repeating this a few times. And also those things that if you do break the fast, there is a penalty that goes with it, an expiation, and we're going to explain that inshallah. The first category, what we are covering, are those things which break and invalidate the fast, okay, but do not require an expiation, okay. That which breaks the fast, okay, it invalidates the fast, requires a makeup without expiation, without kafara. So the first thing we wanted to talk about is the following. When we say makeup, it means that for that one day that you missed, you can make it up another day after Ramadan, right? So very simple. You miss a day, whether you were sick, you were traveling, okay, you make those days up. But also, there are times that you make a mistake and you break the fast. We're going to talk about all those reasons. But in breaking the fast, you just have one day to make up, okay, without expiation, without kafara, okay? We're going to explain what that is a little bit later. So these are very simple. We're going through the invalidators or the nullifiers of fasting. And in this particular list I'm about to read, it could be a lot added. We'll see how time goes, inshallah. Those are those things which break your fast. Just make up one day for those things after. Okay, so you're with me, inshallah. The second category we're going to cover is going to come a little bit later on, and when we get there, I'll explain it, inshallah. So the first of these are suppository. This is medicine that they insert in the backside or rectum of a human being. They're medicinal, they're for medicine. And then it slowly goes up into the body, into the intestines, etc. This breaks the fast, but you have a valid reason, and so you would make that up another time, but it would break the fast. Okay? Number 2, accidentally swallowing water, meaning water that enters the mouth or nose and reaches the throat or the brain, that also would make the fast invalid. Okay? Those are, for each one of these, you're going to make up one day. The next one is eating intentionally when there was never an intention to fast from the beginning. Okay, so this is a person that never intended to fast. Okay, so the reason they mention this is because uh, if they had an intention, for example, before Fajr prayer entered, I'm going to be fasting. Okay, they made their intention up, Fajr prayer started, they are now fasting. They cannot break the fast. Even if it's 9 a.m., they cannot say, oh, it's not half the day yet, I'll just decide if I still want to fast. No. Once Fajr prayer started and you made an intention that you are fasting this day for the sake of Allah and Fajr started, khalas, there's no coming out of it. That was an intention you made for fasting. Now you must hold your fast for the rest of the day, no matter what. Unless, of course, there are some reasons, then we'll get to those when we get to them, inshallah. So that's what it means that there was never an intention to fast. Okay? Eating intentionally when there was no, so a person didn't have intention to fast, and therefore it is a day of Ramadan, and it's 1 p.m., 2 p.m., they're eating, they're committing a sin, they're doing haram, if they had no reason why they're not fasting, unless of course they're traveling. And there's rules to traveling, brothers and sisters, that you should know, right? You can only break your fast when you're traveling if, and pay very close attention, if you have already left the vicinity of your town, your city, before Fajr started. Right? وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ, and whoever is sick and upon a journey. So the ulama mentioned that one needs to be on the actual journey when Fajr started. I remember when I was younger and we had a very long drive to study knowledge, and some of us was very difficult to fast all day long. You have a 5-hour travel driving, you're in classes for 5-6 hours, then you're back driving another 5 hours back. That was difficult. So in order to be exempt from fasting, you'd have to have cleared the city limits before Fajr started, right? And we did that. Some of us did not fast because it was very difficult and the classes were very important. One has that option. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says when you're traveling or you're sick. Now this doesn't mean just because you're traveling, oh, you don't fast. I'm traveling, I don't have to fast. No, rather the recommendation is that you should fast unless it is going to be very difficult. You have an option, you don't have to fast. أو مريضا, or they are sick. So there are some sicknesses that we discussed before in the last session. I'm not going to repeat those. But those are severe sickness which allows or absolves one from their responsibility to fast the rest of the day. Right? These are extreme cases and they do occur. Such as a person that might collapse, they fainted, they're not doing well. Looks like you're about to take them to the hospital. They need water. Those kind of cases are different. But again, just because you're hungry or just because you're so thirsty, you just feel you can't take it, you can't just break your fast. You're going to have to hold on for the rest of the day. However, this is again talking about a person that never made the intention from the beginning of the day, but they happen to be eating and drinking during Ramadan. It's not that they have to now do kafara for that or an expiation. We'll explain what that is. But now they just committed haram. They will, for those days that they did not fast due to this excuse, they will have to make it up after Ramadan. They will have to make these fasts up after Ramadan, right? Even, God forbid, should this occur 10 years later, 15 years later, 25 years later, this is a debt that you owe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you must make it up. It's as simple as that. This is why I highly encourage myself and all of you, maybe not myself now, I'm a lot older, but if you're young, don't pass on fasting from an early life. Continue to fast from the early years of yours, inshallah, such that you will continue to, inshallah, fast throughout your entire life, inshallah. So, going back to this list now, okay? Ejaculation due to touching and kissing, okay? So this is where, what is excluded from this, right? What is excluded from this? Okay, we're going to discuss that in a second. Okay. So what is excluded from that is basically were a person to actually have intimate relations between the spouses, sexual relations. In that case, not only will it invalidate, and we're going to see that, is now it would also require a kafara or an expiation. Okay, so this is in the case that there was no actual intimacy involved in terms of actual sexual intercourse and relations, but this is just to other reasons. Therefore, the fast is broken, but without kafara, without expiation. Okay, so that's another one. Number 5, and there are many, and we're going to add to this inshallah as we go along. Okay, self-induced vomiting. That means that a person made themselves vomit on purpose. What is considered a mouthful or more? What is a mouthful? Right? A mouthful is that which you cannot hold. You basically vomit where you have no control because it's so much. It's so powerful, right? It is not where you just slightly vomit and it's just a very tiny small amount. That's different. A person who deliberately swallows the vomit after will actually break their fast. Okay, so it does break your fast to do so, make yourself throw up on purpose. And also what would break the fast is a person then swallows it, God forbid, on purpose, deliberately. That would also break the fast. And there's no expiation involved. Now there's many others that we're going to discuss. A common one that we often think about, and I'm going to bring up now a bunch more scenarios that we won't be sharing with you in the slides. There's just too many, to be honest. But inshallah, we're going to go through the list, and hopefully that'll give you a very crystal clear picture of everything that breaks your fast. Okay, I know it's a youth class, but the concepts are easy. Just going to have to review this video and just, at Seekers, we do have a very nice book on this, ebook, inshallah, A Complete Guide to Fasting in Ramadan. It's definitely worth it to download and to refer to that. Although, I do compare my notes from different books that I've studied in order to make it compact, concise, and relatable and simple for a youth level. But nonetheless, there's a lot more that we could attach to it. So what are the common ones that a lot of people, especially young people, ask about is swallowing toothpaste or mouthwash, right? And this is often done, right, accidentally. Now, if you do remember in last week's session or the last sessions we've had, what happens if one is brushing their teeth or using mouthwash and in that moment they forgot their fasting and then they accidentally swallowed some? Do they break their fast? A quick response. Let me know in the comments below. Yes or no? That's a good little quiz for you, okay? Yes or no? Do they break it? Right? Very good. No, they don't, because they forgot. But if they were remembering in their mind that, it's getting close. Oh, it is Fajr. Somebody came and said, it's Fajr 5 minutes ago. You're brushing your teeth. And on accident, now you swallowed a little bit of toothpaste or some mouthwash, right? Now, it's not haram or forbidden to brush your teeth while you're fasting, but it is disliked because of the fear that you might swallow something down your throat and that would then break your fast. So my recommendation to you is to avoid it. If you know that Fajr has entered, you can just get your toothbrush, wet it, make sure nothing is on it, and just quickly do a rinse. If you have siwak, miswak, right, the natural one with no flavoring in it or anything, just a basic plain one, you can also use that to brush your teeth, and inshallah, that would also help, clean your teeth, etc. This is why it's a good habit to not brush your teeth as the last thing you do right at the point of Fajr. You should give some point, if you recall, 5 to 10 minutes before the actual Fajr starts. That would be safer. Now, in the case that they did swallow a little bit on accident, and then they know that it went down, they didn't have a doubt, they knew it went down, oops, it came down. Now, for the rest of the day, they have to fast that day. They cannot now say, oh my God, I messed up, forget, I'm just going to go have breakfast. That's not allowed to do so. You're going to have to fast the rest of the day, but make that one day up later without anything else of an expiation or kafara. Okay? So we're going to have to make that day up if it's done on accident. You are showering. These are the most common cases. You swallowed a little bit of water. My recommendation to you, myself and you, is not to take a shower where you got your mouth open and the water is going straight in your mouth. That's very dangerous. Odds are some is going to go straight down. Keep your head down. You can shampoo, do everything, and just keep your mouth away from direct impact, right? So that would help you out in making sure that you don't break your fast, okay? And so there are other things that relate to the different parts of the body that would then constitute breaking of the fast. And these are many, so we're going to start off with that which relates to the mouth and the throat, since we had been actually covering this all this time. So eating and drinking on accident. Eating and drinking because one thought Maghrib is in. This also occurs. God forbid, that's why I told you in the previous lessons, please just wait an extra 3 minutes after Maghrib to ensure Maghrib is in, right? Just be safe. You can't really trust a lot of these apps these days. Just about a week ago, there was an app that my mom was using, my mother, and I looked at that app and I looked at mine, and there was a 3-minute difference on Maghrib, and I know that the one I use is accurate for sure, and that it was off. And then she said, well, why does it have a mistake? Apps have mistakes sometimes. It's just the programming, the degrees they may have put in. That's why it's good to check the app, good to check the local sunset where you are. My recommendation to you, if you check the local time sunset, let's say it's 5:55 p.m. local sunset time. Generally, cutting it close, 3 minutes after that is Maghrib. It takes the sun about 3 minutes to go completely below. If you add 2 more minutes, it's safety. So 5:55 says sunset is at 5:55, not Maghrib. Please get this correctly. Sunset, which means that the sun is now at the horizon, right at the horizon. Now it's going to take it about 3 minutes to go down. Give it another 2, it's Maghrib. Compare that also with the app that you have to make sure it lines up. If your app is off, it says Maghrib is at 5:56. Local sunset time is 5:55. I can guarantee you, I did my own test for a long time. I had many classes that I used to drive to right next to a beach that you can look out in the horizon and check the sun. And I checked it for a long time. It takes slightly less than 3 minutes to completely go down, absolutely below. So if you give it 5 now, just compare it. If it says 5:56, but you got local sunset 5:55, that's not accurate. Give it some time of safety just to be sure. Okay. So, but if a person did eat or drink because they thought Maghrib was in, but then Maghrib didn't enter, these kind of mistakes and many other will make it that you just make up 1 day of fasting later, but you don't have to do the expiation. Again, I'm going to explain that, but it is to fast 2 months consecutive, as I mentioned earlier, for the expiation. I was going to cover the expiation later, but I think it makes sense just to give you what that exactly is. Okay, so let's just explain that right now. The expiation, kafara in Arabic, is, first of all, I didn't put this on here, but it is to free a slave, which generally is not the case in our time and days, but it was during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and many centuries later. So that's the first one they list. However, when that's not there, then you move to fasting 2 consecutive months or 60 days if you're starting, right? So 60 days. If you recall the subtle point I made that if you fasted 2 months and the months were 29 days, then you could get away technically with a 58-day fast of kafara. If you cannot genuinely fast for 2 months, and that's just not because you feel it's hard, but you have a good reason. Medically, there's a reason you cannot fast. Your doctor, who is upright Muslim, informs you that that would be harmful to your body. You've experienced it. You've tested it out. Every time you fasted, maybe 2 weeks straight, you just couldn't handle it, right? You may have went to the hospital. You may have had to take medicine. It was really, really bad. So there is a reason why you cannot do it, a genuine reason. If that be the case, then you move on to feeding 60 poor people a half a sa, which is 2.2 kilos of wheat to each person. Okay? So you feed 60 people 2.2 kilos of wheat. Or you give the equivalent to the poor. One could also give 60 poor people 2.2 kilos of dates or similar food grains, or as I listed here, the equivalent monetary value, meaning the money to each person. Okay, so you could also do that. Now, I was doing some research today on exactly how much that is, and it seems that it will vary country to country and then in the weight of what you use. But to be honest, it's really low. It's something like, and I'm not going to quote numbers because this video might be watched a lot later, but it's really low. I can tell you that 2 kilos of wheat in many countries is less than $5 US. Okay, it could be around $3 to $5 US, right? So, but wallahu alam, I would say ask a local scholar in the country wherever you live what that amount is. Were you to give it instead as monetary value to poor people, that there's a lot everywhere in the world that are suffering. Okay, so that is basically the expiation, that now you know what the kafara is. The reason this expiation is there, because this is a major penalty for breaking the fast. Okay, and you broke the fast with no excuse. And so we're going to see that. So what are those things that does cause that? I think it makes sense as well, just to get it out of the way, of what exactly then constitutes breaking the fast with kafara. Okay? So let's go through that right now. These are those things that invalidate the fast, requires makeup with expiation or kafara. Okay, they're eating and drinking. As I explained earlier, once you already have an intention to be fasting, in the month of Ramadan, this is very important that you realize, not just any time of the year, but it is when it is in the month of Ramadan. You already intended before Fajr, you're fasting that day, and you eat and drink on purpose, or spouses have intimate relations or sexual intercourse during that time. These are the two methods of how an expiation is now on you, and you have to now fulfill. Okay, so it's very clear. These are major violation. Okay, and it's very sinful. One needs to make tawbah for it, and you need to make them up. And that now, there's a lot of different scenarios of many other ways where expiation never falls, and those are all because of minor mistakes or things you assumed would break your fast, but it didn't. All right. For example, eating and drinking forgetfully, and thereafter thinking that your fast is broken. Right. So a person eats or drinks and goes, "Oh my God, I broke my fast." They didn't know if you do it forgetfully, you don't break your fast. Now they think, "Oh, forget it. I broke my fast, so I'm just going to have food anyway." That is not a deliberate breaking of the fast with no reason. That's a silly mistake they made because they didn't have knowledge. And so it wasn't on the premise of, hey, I'm going to go eat and drink and break my fast. Okay? It was a mistake, right? So in that case, for example, the person would just make up one day and no expiation. So now we're going to give more examples now that you saw all the ways that fasting breaks with kafara and expiation. We covered that. Now we're going to expand on what I already covered a little bit earlier about all those things which break the fast, require a makeup, but does not require from us kafara. Okay? So there's more examples. If you're eating and drinking before at suhoor time, now Fajr enters, right? Now Fajr enters, and you had some food particles in your mouth. You didn't get a chance to brush your teeth. You just started praying Allahu Akbar. And while you're praying or right after you're fasting, when you swallowed, you realize there was a small amount of particles where it went down your throat. Okay? So if it is less than the size of a chickpea, which is a very, very small amount, like a very, very small amount, and it just happened to go down on its own, then fasting does not break. Okay? If it's small amount. If it's more than that, you have, more particles and more stuff in your mouth, and you swallowed what felt like there was a substantial amount, bigger than a chickpea, then that would break your fast. So it's very important. And no kafara is made because it was not something that was deliberate or something which was on purpose. There is a section that deals with, in the suppository section of putting medicine into your backside, the rectum, for medicinal purposes. There's also in fiqh, just so people know, a lot of times the ulama, they explain these things by details that may or may not happen, but it just wants to clarify to you exactly what are the things that would make fasting, what you would break by fasting. You would break your fasting. You would need to make it up with no kafara. So there are a few that relates to the private parts that's also important that we need to cover. Okay? Entering something wet or oiled into the backside of a human being, of yourself, would break the fast, even if it does not completely disappear inside the body. Okay, there's a section also that deals with the female private part. If they were to put something of a piece of cloth, whether it's wet, and as well as we'll cover if it's dry, entering a wet tissue or a piece of cotton into the female private part would also break the fast if it is wet and if it had that substance, because then it would break it. If it was a dry tissue or a dry piece of cotton that now is put into that private part of a female, and it is completely inserted inside of the body without any part remaining outside or any part of it, etc., then this would actually break the fast. So the difference is that if it's dry, if all of it is inserted where nothing else remains, then it would break the fast. If it is wet or oiled or something like that and it is inserted, that also would break the fast. Putting water or oil into the backside where it reaches the level of what a word in fiqh describes as similar to a few inches. It would be a few inches, not sure exactly the amount, but there's a higher, and they used to do this for medicinal purposes. They used to put some things in the back, just like suppositories, and it would be inserted in the backside for a bit of a distance, and then if water or oil reaches into the backside and goes up to the distance of, one could look what is described now to be certain syringes, etc., that clean the backside, that would be the distance of it. So one would want to consult in a little bit more detail, inshallah. If you sign up for the class and you put a comment in there, we'll give you that more details of that. But just be careful that anything that then, in these descriptions we give you, that if you do insert or it is put in, then it does break the fast. But no expiation is required. Yes, I did say that swallowing food particles requires makeup fast, yes, but not expiation. No, does not require expiation. Now, there's a section that deals with now the nose. We talked about it. When you make wudu, practically speaking, be very careful, because when you take water up to the nose, it should be a little bit when you're fasting. Sometimes people have a habit, they sniff it up and it might get up here and it goes into the body cavity. If food or water or anything reach, sure, the stomach or the cavity of the brain, then that breaks the fast. So you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful. So my recommendation when you're fasting, just be careful. You do rinse your nose, but don't take water too high. And just like when you gargle and you clean your mouth, you are allowed to clean your mouth while you're fasting, but don't put your head back and gargle. That would be disliked, because odds are some will go down. But if you keep your head tilted down like this, when you actually make wudu and you spit, that's going to be fine. As the residue that remains after you spit and you clean your mouth, you spit a couple of times, whatever wetness would remain does not break the fast at all. Okay? That's just the sunnah of washing your teeth and spitting out, as long as you do that. But if you got your head tilted back and you're doing this, and that, odds are that some might go down your throat. Be careful. Okay? There is a lot more. And yes, so the distance of what we were talking about is similar to what is a rectal syringe. That's what they use. And one can look that up. If you are taking medicine or you're doing something like that, or you've done that, then you need to look at those things and consider that. Okay, so what do we have remaining? We have remaining things that do not require anything. And there are a few more things. There's a section about other ways one could break the fast, such as spouses that may kiss. If saliva is transferred from the wife to the husband and then he swallows that, that would break the fast, right? So you want to be careful. As for embracing and kissing and hugging, the scholars, they say, if a person has no fear whatsoever that they're going to be attracted, that this may lead on to something else, then that's fine. There's not forbidden nor disliked to kiss and hug or something like that and then go on about one's way. They say those that are older, this is less on them than those that are young and have a lot of passion or desire. They just got married. This is not a good idea to be doing that while you're fasting. One should stay away during the time that one is fasting from their spouse. There's a common thing that sometimes phlegm, when you clear your nose or something like that, some phlegm remains in the throat. Okay, to swallow that does not break the fast. Okay, swallowing that does not break the fast. Okay, so these are common things that actually would be under the section of that which does not break the fast, but people often think that it does. Okay, swallowing one's own saliva, you're really thirsty, you're gathering all of that in your mouth and you keep swallowing your own saliva, does not break your fasting. Okay, also with phlegm, there is a difference of opinion on that between some of the scholars. So if one could avoid it, that would be better. Deliberately vomiting less than a mouthful, if it's a small amount, does not break the fast. Using a miswak or toothbrush does not break the fast. If a mosquito or fly or any other object entered the throat without you doing anything about it, that doesn't break the fast. May God save us from that. I don't know if anybody's ever swallowed a bug. It's not very fun. But if you happen to be laughing, fasting, it just went down your throat, you're like, oh my God, it doesn't break the fast. There's also something about being around smoke, like oud, incense, smoking, right? Obviously, smoking should never be done. But if you're around smoke that is visible, like from incense, from oud, from even a cigarette, somebody smoking, right? And the smoke of that comes to you, if it was something that entered your throat without your doing, it wasn't on purpose, you just happened to be walking and you just walked into a bunch of smoke. You smelled it, but you didn't mean to, it was not deliberate, it just happened to happen, okay? In that case, your fast does not break. If, however, there's visible smoke and it smells good like oud, and you go there and you inhale all that, that's a problem. That's also where inhalers come in. Inhalers, according to the Hanafi school, does break your fast. So if you're using an inhaler, it means that you basically don't have the health to fast, right? Because people complain, what do? I have to use an inhaler. There's a few things you can do. Number one, maybe you can, if you're not working or anything, you can sleep in more of the day while you're fasting, and you can use your inhaler after Maghrib or something like that. Maybe you can pull it off. That's up to you. Or you just have to use it. You have no choice. And maybe in the winter months when it's shorter, you could fast. In that case, you have to make up your fast later on when it's not long days. I believe, though don't quote me on that there is a difference of opinion on that according to the Shafi'i school. But if you do have a question, inshallah, submit it at Seeker's Guidance, and inshallah there will be an answer for you. So if you do use inhaler and this is a concern for you, inshallah, you can go ahead and look that up. I'm sure there is, among the thousands and thousands of answers that we have on Seekers, inshallah you'll find the answer based on the Shafi'i school. Okay? Again, as I mentioned, if something is less than the size of a chickpea, everybody knows what a chickpea is. It's extremely tiny. Then it doesn't break the fast. Okay. Okay. So those are things that relate to that. And there are a few more things, inshallah, that we're going to cover. A little bit of it the next time, inshallah. So those things that do not break the fast nor require anything, a couple more that we wanted to mention here, and perhaps maybe somewhat common, are blood cupping. So you're going for a blood test, they're taking blood out, that doesn't break your fast, nor does it require anything. Okay? It did not require anything. And as I mentioned earlier, using a toothstick. Okay. So there is another last important section, which is about what does a woman do who then experiences her menstruation while she is fasting. Okay? Or during Ramadan, during the day or the night. If she is fasting and she experiences getting her period or menstruation during the morning or any time between Fajr and Maghrib, any time, it would make the rest of that day nullified with no expiation needed, and no makeup either. It would require makeup, but nothing else. That day will not count. That's what I wanted to say. That day will not count, because even if she fasted 7 hours, 2 hours before Asr of that day, she got her period, it doesn't count for her on that day. And she would have to make that day up again, okay? Because she didn't complete a whole day. That's the basic point, right? She didn't complete the whole day. If she got it in the morning, but now the difference is, unlike the case of a person who makes an accidental mistake like swallowing water while showering, if he did that 7 a.m., he's going to have to continue to fast for the rest of the day and make that day up. Unlike that, for a woman who gets her period at 10, 11 in the morning, she can eat and drink for the rest of the day. There is no virtue in her not fasting for the rest of the day, saying, I want to be like people fasting. No, because people fasting are obeying Allah. A woman who experiences her period is obeying Allah by not fasting. So she's doing what you're supposed to. In other words, if a woman fasts while she's on her period, she's going to be committing haram because Allah told her you can't do that. So as a result, you are in worship by eating and drinking. But you have to make that day up later on in the year. Okay, so if her period stops, okay, so let's say her habit was 7 days, her habit is ended, she becomes pure at dhuhr of the 7th of Ramadan, okay. When she becomes pure, she has to fast for the rest of that time because she's now in purity. She makes ghusl, she prays her prayer, now she acts as if she's fasting for the rest of the day, but she will make that day up later on in the year. Okay? So inshallah, that was a couple points about women who have who are on their period, or if they have children and then the blood that follows after. And so she just makes those days up, inshallah. Hopefully this is all clear. And I know fiqh sometimes not that exciting, but I try to go as slow as I can and as careful as I can to try to make these things as clear as I could, inshallah. And I hope that this was clear and inshallah beneficial. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. If there's any questions, go ahead and post it. Otherwise, we will be signing off here in a few minutes for another class that we have right after this, which is the Book of Assistance for Youth, inshallah, from Imam al-Haddad. So those that are watching, stay tuned because we'll come right back on in 5 minutes, inshallah. If there's any questions, go ahead and post it, inshallah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nazuddin, jazakumullah khair. Good to see you all. Any questions? Okay, alhamdulillah. Is everything clear for everyone? Crystal clear? Okay, alhamdulillah. We'll end now, inshallah. Yes, we'll see you next time. Sister Sophia, jazakallah khair, barakallah feekum, Brother Asfar, and everyone else. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you all. Bless you, inshallah. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Wa sallallahu ala habibina Muhammadin nabiyil ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.